So we're about to watch Agatha all along, and I'm gonna give my live reaction. This is a witchy show, and a spiritual concept show, and I love Marvel. I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes apparently. I don't even remember doing that. What happened, spoiler alert, by the way. Basically they go down the witch's road, which is pretty cool. Don't know why there's a witch's road. The last part I ended off at was they were in a house and they were trying to like do all these spells to like get out of the house, kind of like an escape room. It's really dark. I haven't watched any spoilers online. I have not watched any spoilers online. So I don't know the name of this dude. I don't know who he is. I don't remember her name, but apparently her and Agatha have some beef. There's some history there. And she was supposed to go on the witch's road, and I'm curious to see how she's going to show up in the show. Okay, so my reactions are going to be muted because copyright. I forgot the girl died. Last episode, the girl died. She's not even a witch. She was not even supposed to be there. I need a bigger TV. I suffer from CSS and CHS. If you know, you know. What is Agatha's rush? I can't remember the first episode. I feel like the first episode gave us a clue into what was going on and why she even wanted to go on the road in the first place, and I don't remember. Her arch nemesis just got resurrected into the summoned. Pass. Oh well, the road. Just really funny. Has a good sense of humor. For all of the astrology besties, the waxing moon is the fire phase, according to the show. I actually know nothing about astrology. It's a lie. But I don't know enough to like know that piece of information. The moon phases do mean a lot in spirituality, and they actually affect a lot of our emotional side and our subconscious side. And so wherever your moon placement is in your chart, that is your subconscious side, that's your inner world, that's your inner emotions. One of the lines in the show, magic, as it does, takes the path of least resistance. Taking the path of least resistance is your soul alignment. And so what that line is really saying is it shouldn't feel too much like effort or hard. And so yes, we need a little bit of that. We need a little bit of effort, and we need a little bit of that and that spark, right? And it's like, it's not that there's going to be no resistance, it's just that it's the path of least resistance. When you're in alignment, when you're in flow, things just feel smoother. And it's not so much about your physical reality, it's more about how you're feeling. And so for me personally, moving through my life, it is about how I'm feeling. And if I'm feeling carefree, fun, easeful, flowy, that's how I know I'm in alignment. And so I'm following the path of least resistance, meaning like if I ever start to feel frustrated, angry, bitter, resentful, that is the path of most resistance for me. So it depends on how I'm feeling with what I'm doing in my life at that moment. And taking the path of least resistance is it's not that it's easier, but it feels better. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be easier. It just means that it feels in alignment, like you feel good about what you're doing. Of like taking the path of least resistance to me is taking the path where you're happiest. What is going on? So the concept that a song can be protection is brilliant. And I've seen this in other shows as well, that a song can protect you. And that is 100% true because it is the energetics, the vibrations, the emotion behind the song and what it actually means to you that it can actually protect you. And I've always really loved music. I've always loved sound. And that's one of the reasons why I became a sound therapy practitioner, because I love sound and I feel like sound can heal. Sound can really heal, and it can really spark emotions which need to be felt. That concept is so true. They're sitting around like a campfire and they're talking, whatever. And one of them goes, "You know what gets, don't quote me on this because this is going to be wrong." But she said something along the lines of, "You know what gets me about being a witch, or the worst part about being a witch is all the rumors and the fear mongering and the whatever, and that we all talk to ghosts." It's like true, true. When I'm talking about witches, what I mean is a spiritual person, a spiritual leader, an energy healer. Not everyone identifies as that, and I understand that there are some differences there. Because some people like to fully identify with whatever. But when I'm referring to that, I mean just like a spiritual person in general, or like an energy healer. A lot of spiritual, like for me, for example, I don't identify as that. I'm a spiritual healer, an energy healer, spiritual person. I am a medium, but I don't identify as a medium because that's not my forte in communicating with past loved ones and ghosts and spirits, whatever you want to call them. That's not really my forte. I do communicate more with the spirit guides and the angels and different like beings like that, but not specifically spirits like ghosts and like loved ones. So it's not really my forte. And so it's funny how I was just laughing because it's so true. There are a lot of like fear mongering or rumors or like misconceptions about what spiritual healers or spiritual people are, what they do, or like how they think. And part of my whole niche is like breaking out of that mold and showing like we're all just people. Everyone is a person. And I find that really funny. So, chills. Okay, I have a lot to say on Ouija boards. I would not suggest using them without a spiritual healer or spiritual psychic intuitive who knows how to use them. I feel like it has become a game, and the thing is like it's not a game. Spiritual tools are not a game. Spiritual tools can be used as lighthearted, fun things like cards and pendulums and things like that. Spiritual tools meaning like essential oils, tarot cards, oracle cards, pendulums, different boards or cutouts or mats or whatever. They can be they're tools to elevate and use in your spiritual practice, and they can be used for fun and lighthearted and love and light. And so I have a very strong opinion of this. If you don't know what you're doing, you can accidentally open portals, leave doors open. Like in this show, they left a door open and they should know what they're doing, but they accidentally left a door open and something came through. And it's like you need to close all your doors, close all your portals, close all your stuff, and like only anchor into love and light, only accept love and light. And spiritual tools should only be used if you have been trained or if you're working with a energy healer or spiritual leader, spiritual person who knows kind of what they're talking about. For me personally, like anytime I've been trained or certified or went through my personal development journey, I was going with somebody who I trusted and who I knew who had already been through all the process and who can kind of show me the ropes. So another thing to add with that is like there's been so much energetic momentum for specific spiritual tools that they're bad. They're not bad. They're just not used correctly or in the most appropriate way. I feel like it needs to be respected at the same time. Like we need to respect the spirits, we need to respect the tools, we need to respect the other dimensions and the other realms. Because it's not a game. And that can be taken advantage of as well. So I would recommend caution with any type of spiritual tools or things like that. And really, like, if you're going to work with somebody with that, make sure that you trust them and that they know what they're doing. One, do not taunt the spirits, and two, what do you say? When ending the session, always say goodbye. When doing energy work, it's really important to always close up your session at the end of the session. It's really important to close it up You're not keeping it open. So whenever I do a high and I'm tapping into a high and I'm activating a high, I'm closing the session. I am closing my connection to a high because I don't want to be channeling a high all day long. Like, I will not be able to function. I don't say goodbye. I have other tips and tricks that I use to close out the session, but I always close out the session. Any type of energy work too. Even if I'm not doing a high, like if I'm doing energy work on myself, I don't always do a high, I do other things. And so I'm always closing out the session. You can close out the session with gratitude, with saying thank you. But every time you're doing that, you have to close it. You should see me in the crowd. One light, you should see. So many emotions. I just finished episode 5. So many emotions I just went through. I don't even know which way is up right now. And she said, "You're just like your mother," or something like that. So she knows who he is. She knows who he is. And then he put her in quicksand. No! And then he got his crown. If he is the Scarlet Witch's kid, where's his brother? Also, he has this whole other life. How does the timelines work in this show? We'll find out. Her kid's soul is in his body. If I'm correct, he just had a walk-in. A walk-in is like a soul swap. So he's Billy. What? Where's Tommy? He's telepathic. He's telepathic. He's Billy. You know what's really interesting is he had a walk-in. Billy's soul went into his body as a walk-in, but he kept his psychic abilities. He kept his psychic senses and psychic abilities. That's a really interesting concept because his soul remembers how to be psychic and how to be telepathic. That's a really cool concept. Now, telepathy is a real thing. Not so much in the sense of the shows and the movies. With being telepathic, that is just your psychic senses. Like telepathy is, yes, it is in the third eye here, but it's also just like your psychic senses in general. It's like picking up intuitive information. To me, like, that is telepathy. Like that, I mean, it is your third eye, like if you want to get technical, but to me it represents psychic senses in a general sense because it's like I can pick up intuitive information anywhere I go. I have the ability to like walk past someone and like feel how they're feeling or like know how they're feeling, kind of thing. Telepathy is real. That's just your clairvoyance. That's your clairaudience. That's like communicating with spirit guides. Like, that's your psychic senses. That's telepathy. It's pretty cool stuff. This is so sad. He got taken away from his family and put into a new family in somebody else's body. This is wild. I haven't done too much research on walk-ins, but it's a pretty wild concept. Imagine looking in a mirror and you don't recognize yourself. That would be really freaky. It makes me love and appreciate myself even more. If I were to look in the mirror and not recognize myself, I feel like I'd be so, so sad. It makes me really appreciate myself. The dog, bro. Animals are super sensitive little psychics because animals haven't been programmed or taught that spirits don't exist and that like the spiritual sides of things aren't real. Like, when we're little kids, we're programmed to be like, the angels aren't real, or like your imaginary friend is imaginary. That's not real, it's fake, it's all movies and TV shows and it's whatever. Like, we're programmed out of our spiritual side. And so, but animals are not. So animals can see that shit. And so this dog is freaking out because he knows something's different with this dude. He knows Billy. He knows it's somebody else. Down Witch's Road. The dynamic between Agatha and Billy is so funny. Oh my goodness. They're funny. You really are a Maximoff, otherwise none of this would be nearly as dramatic. What is going on in this show? I swear there's more characters that aren't dead yet. Where's the rest of them? We're going to episode 7? So they mention reading tea leaves in the show, and I think that's really cool because the concept of reading tea leaves, my aunt actually used to do that, um, which I didn't know until I was older. But my great aunt actually used to read tea leaves, and we were actually really, really close when she was alive. And I find that concept really cool. I went on a retreat last year, and it was a spiritual slash business retreat, and we were reading tea leaves, and I was getting to know how to read tea leaves, and I found that concept really cool. Um, I know a lot of people do it differently, a lot of different ways to do it. Some people would teach it differently, but it's a really cool concept just to kind of look at the leaves and look at the tea, just reading the or interpreting using your intuitive abilities, the placement of the leaves and what messages the earth has to share. And I say earth because the leaves are of earth and the water is of earth. And so what messages does it have to share? And also the Akashic records is also stored in water. And so what wisdom can water give us? Water holds memory. And that's a quote from Frozen, from Olaf in Frozen, water holds memory. And he's not wrong because the Akashic records is also stored in water. And anytime you want an answer to a question or you want clarity, water's the route to go. You could sip on water, drink on what you ask your question or ask for clarity on something specific and drink your water, sip on water, have a bath, go for a swim, take a shower, that kind of thing. And it's pretty common. A lot of people actually have a lot of clarity, a lot of epiphanies, a lot of creative ideas in the shower, in the bath, or while swimming. And that's not a coincidence. With Lilia in this show, this is a perfect example of timeline jumping and timeline hopping and conscious astral traveling. And so she's she's astral traveling consciously in her waking hours, but of her current life, of her current incarnation. This is what I was talking about when trying to explain astral traveling, timeline hopping, and incarnation hopping. Um, and you can, like, this is what happens to me. So, like, I'll explain it from my perspective and, like, what happens with me because this is what happens when I'm sleeping and or meditating or astral traveling or astral projecting. You can access we're multidimensional beings and we can access other dimensions and other times as well. And so time exists within the matrix, within the third dimension, and not really outside of that. And so because time is happening all at once, all at the same time, it's not real, even though it is real because we're still experiencing that. So it is real. And I know a lot of people say, oh, time isn't real, time is an illusion. We're experiencing time, so it's not an illusion, it's real. But it's real at the third dimension. But if you're talking about the fifth dimension, yeah, it's not, right? But it's not like it's an illusion because it's not like we're not an illusion, so that means time is also not an illusion. This is the same thing as like accessing the Akashic records and past life regressions. And I say past life like that, I use quotations because it's not really past, it's just kind of all happening at the same time. So you can access various time periods. I have been able to access various time periods throughout different incarnations while I'm sleeping and while in the astral realm. And like I talked about that in my energy work video of like experiencing other lives and other memories from other lives, other incarnations, and having those memories and waking up and anchoring into this incarnation. I'm Carly, I'm at this time, this is the year, this is the date kind of thing. And I talked a little about that in my energy work video. And I just feel like Lilia in this show is a perfect example of what I meant, of like what I was talking about. This is the thing, it's like with concepts like these, the shows and the movies will show it differently. Like it shows it a little bit more dramatically, is what I would say. Like that's like what's happening with Lilia is not is it's that's not what's actually like going on, right? Like that's not what's actually going on. Literally, like in my experience, in my personal experience, I mean, I don't know, you don't know, but like in my personal experience, it's not what's actually going on with me. It's just like when I tap into the Akashic records, I can access other incarnations of myself, other lives, other times, and it's kind of like just psychic intuitive information. So I can interpret it and see psychic intuitive information from that perspective and from that life or from that incarnation, that experience. There's a really emotional part right now, and I haven't actually quite finished it yet, but I have so much to say on it. Lilia is being a really interesting character in this episode, and she's going through this like identity thing. Facing your truth takes courage. Facing your truth takes strength. It's raw, it's vulnerable, and it's kind of like sacrificing your ego, your protections of your heart, because it's really being vulnerable, acknowledging your truth and seeing your truth, and really stepping into that and being your most authentic self. I have anchored in such a perspective and what that actually means that it's challenging to kind of express that on what I perceive to be really authentic truth. But it's your courage, it's your strength, it's your deepest innermost thoughts and feelings and emotions. And sometimes we don't even know what that is. Like sometimes we legit don't even know how we feel or our thoughts. What are our actual thoughts? Or are they thoughts from somebody else? Is it programming? Is it from watching content or whatever? It's like, what are our actual thoughts? How do I actually feel about this? How do I think about this? What's truly authentic to me? And sometimes we can get kind of lost in the sauce in that way. I know I was. And so she's going through an identity thing, and there's a part of her that doesn't want her powers, I feel. Because being a seer can be challenging. There's a lot that comes with going down the route of your spiritual journey, which spiritual journey to me just means your personal development journey. Personal development, healing yourself, healing your inner child, healing your shadow work, uniting with your divine child within you. And with all of that comes your unique gifts, which is uniquely who you are. For those who have the gift of sight for the future, that can be challenging because in some cases we can change what happens, in some cases we cannot. And that is because there are certain lessons we are here to learn, whether we want to or not, whether we perceive it's good or bad, whether we perceive it's unfair. And that's all of our human perception, because at the fifth dimensional perspective, everything is neutral. There's no good or bad, there's no right or wrong, there is no fair or unfair, is what it is. Because it is all lessons, it is all teaching us something to grow, to expand the soul, to experience source, to experience life, to experience everything that our soul chooses, actually. Our soul chooses our lessons, and our soul chooses how it wants to grow and what it wants to learn, what it wants to experience. And so some things are what they are. And I don't take that lightly. I don't mean to say that lightly at all, because that has been one of my hardest lessons to understand, is things just are what they are. And there's some things that we can't change, that we won't change. There's some things that are just is, and that can be challenging. And so when I opened up my psychic gifts, I always said I don't want to do the future. I don't want to see the future. I don't want to be um, interpreting the future. And I feel like that's what Lily is going through, because she has the gift of sight and premonitions, and that's hard for her to accept. It's one of her gifts. And sometimes our greatest gifts are the hardest for us to accept. It's true for me. Episode 8. So Alice and Lilia are actually dead. They call the Green Witch Death because she is the balance between all things, like all living things, all things in general, but there is a sacred balance in all things. And I want to say living things, but it's like everything is technically alive, like everything has energy, everything has an energetic signature to it. There is a cycle, the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And so there is always a balance, there is always death and rebirth. And it's like when something dies, another thing is reborn. When a cycle completes, another cycle begins. In the spiritual world and in the personal development space, we learn about these concepts of death and rebirth, cycles closing. There's always a circle, there's always a cycle. And especially with Gaia, there's always a cycle, there's always a chapter to close, to move on from, to reopen, or like to open a new one. And sometimes us humans, it's because of our emotions. We don't always like that. We don't always like it when things end. But in the balance of things, if something's ending, a new thing is beginning because it's just the way it works. It can be sad to us because of our human emotions going through something that might feel challenging or difficult or hard or sad, because we don't like those emotions. It's hard to feel that. And so we may not like those cycles, we may not like the endings or the death or the XYZ because it's challenging to navigate those emotions and to accept those things ending. But when one thing ends, another thing always begins. And so it's important to always remember, like, yes, some things end, but new beginnings are arising. There's always a constant flow, there's always a constant change. Things are constantly changing, like we're constantly changing. Like our opinions, our identity, our values, our beliefs, like our lessons, everything is always constantly changing. And it's important to remember that as well. And so, Gaia, Mother Earth, the Green Witch, death, um, these energies are always in a cycle and always moving forward, right? They're always moving forward. Sometimes it's hard to accept that depending on the circumstance, depending on what you're going through at the time, or what's actually changing in your life. But transformation is really important. Change, because it happens. It's just the nature of things. This is why I'm doing this, because the stuff that happens in shows and movies, I believe, have some validity to it. Some weird shit be happening on Earth. That was so beautiful to watch. She got her magic back. She did an unbinding ritual, which basically stated, like, nobody holds any power over me. I take back my power, I empower myself. And she got her magic back. And so I can relate to that, like, on so many levels of just going through my own personal development journey, identity seeking journey, finding myself. And I've cried like that before, finding parts of me and finding pieces of me and coming into my own and into myself, and just expressing gratitude and love for myself. And there's just like a beauty in having those spiritual awakening moments, or those epiphanies, or those moments during energy healing or during sessions with somebody, and it's like you just find home. And there's so many times where I found a part of myself and it just feels like home. And I just feel like I found home and I found my own magic, I found my own spark. Um, and so that was really, really beautiful to watch. Did he make all that up in his head? Like Wanda? Ooh. Episode 9. Oh, I love that line. So she goes, the road wasn't real until you made it real. Yo, that line can go so deep on so many levels. Like, your path isn't real until you make it real. Like, that's the thing about when we talk about in the spiritual space manifestation or whatever. I prefer intention setting, but manifestation is very popular, more popular than intention setting. But when you're like manifesting your life or something specific in your life, it's like it's not real until you make it real. Like, you need to take aligned action with your intention to bring it into your reality. And it's so true. Like, with, and you can
say that with anything, like that's so deep. Like nothing is real until you make it real. Like your belief system, your belief, your mind, your energy is so powerful, is so potent that you can create literally whatever you want. And like that is the magic. So like each and every single one of us is so magical and so potent that our intention, our belief, our energy creates our reality. So in conclusion, this show was wild. I kind of wish I picked up that Billy, it was all in Billy's, like he created it. And as soon as we found out that he was Wanda's kid, which I kind of like figured, but I didn't really know. As soon as I found out that he was Wanda's kid, I should have put it together. Because there's little hints throughout the whole show. Very spooky. Very spooky, creepy show. Um, so many hidden spiritual concepts though. So, hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll catch you in the next one.